Just 2 years ago, Daiki Nakamura made his debut in the Sumo Dohyo as Onosato. Now he is the 75th Yokozuna in sumo history, and unlike the last one, there is absolutely no debate to be had over his worthiness. We'll talk about it today on the New to Sumo podcast.
Let's start the show. New to sumo, here we go.
When we first discussed what it would take for us to get a new Yokozuna, even before Terunofuji retired, we had to look at what the precedent was. The precedent was this goes back, decades for some, maybe even a century for others. It was one of two things. You either win back-to-back Yusho as an Ozeki, or you have two championship worthy performances as an Ozeki. Now, championship worthy performances can mean a bunch of different things. It has generally meant around 12 to 13 wins at least, and usually would equate to around 26 wins over two tournaments. It was a bit of an issue with Hoshoryu because he'd only had one outright Yusho and just 25 wins over those two, but they decided to promote him, possibly because Terunofuji was just retired and they didn't want to have to go a basho without a Yokozuna. But Onosato easily cleared both of the bars. He not only got the 26 wins, he got those back-to-back Yusho, and it's actually the first to do it with the back-to-back Yusho since I believe Haruma Fuji over a decade ago. So it really has been a while since someone was promoted to Yokozuna by doing it the way set by the longtime precedent with those back-to-back Yusho.
Yeah, one of the things about sumo that, makes it challenging when it comes to things like promotion and specifically Yokozuna promotion is that a lot of the criteria that are set to ensure that someone is in each rank, like, for example, promotion to Ozeki, which there have to be Ozeki, and promotion to Yokozuna, which technically you don't have to have one, but we certainly prefer to have one, and the JSA prefers to have one, is that these are not things that are mathematical guarantees. Whereas in other sports, obviously, a sport like soccer, there's going to be penalty shootout at the end. There's always going to be a winner, and in a game of baseball, you might play 30 innings, but eventually someone's going to score some runs. But in sumo, it doesn't always work like that. And sometimes the way that the performances shake out in a tournament makes it a little bit tricky to fill some of those positions. And, going into the next tournament, there's going to be a little bit of some vagueness about how we're filling out the Banzake, because Onosato, promoted to Yokozuna, is also going to be serving as Ozeki. It's going to be a little bit weird like that. So, with Yokozuna too, we know that the JSA wanted a Yokozuna, but Hoshoryu hadn't cleared the most rigid of guidelines in order to get that promotion. Now, in the case of Onosato, he made the decision very easy because he did exactly what is set as the requirement, and he did it in impressive fashion. I mean, I'd say, the biggest storyline at the end of this tournament was not whether or not he would win it, because he had secured the victory. Was it day 12 or day 13?
Day 13, very,
Yeah.
very fast.
The question was whether or not he would get a Zen Yusho for the first time since Terunofuji did it. And unfortunately, he was stopped on the final day, or unfortunately for him, he was stopped on the final day by none other than Hoshoryu. Such a fitting story, as I talked about in our last video. But, Onosato really does not come packaged with the slight controversy that Hoshoryu's promotion did. And I think that that final day win for Hoshoryu really helped to set the stage that these two are on equal footing. And they are appropriately situated across from each other at the Yokozuna mantle.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Like, Hoshoryu is a guy that, we all assume will start having those, like, and he kind of already has started having consistent, like, 12 win tournaments. But Onosato's kind of been doing that for over a year now. I mean, he's only had he's had 9 tournaments in the Makuuchi division, and he has had at least 11 wins in 6 of those. In just 9. And he's had at least 12 in, let's see, in 4 of them. That's more than Hoshoryu has had in his entire career. in terms of 12 win tournaments. So like for months, honestly, like I've been seeing people in our channel and in other channels commenting, why isn't Onosato the Yokozuna already? Because those are, because it's mostly people that don't understand like the quote unquote rules to this thing. But for a lot of people, like it's been less a question of is he worthy to just like, come on, can we wrap this up already? Like we know he's worthy. Just stop wasting our time with the with all of this procedure and just give him his big braided rope already.
Yeah, we even made the points over a year ago when the channel was fresh. We actually said in one of our titles, Onosato, future Yokozuna. So it seems pretty clear. I think it was after his first U show, which was when he was in the Komusubi ranks, where it just felt like it was inevitable. Because what we saw with Onosato was that as he moves up in the rankings, he adjusts and then gets better. And this was something that you pointed out in the last video about him in anticipation of this tournament, that every time he got promoted to a new level, he started out lower and then proceeded to reach a height that he had never achieved before. And the same happened again when he got to Ozeki. So, just to kind of recap that point, it was when he first got up to the Makuuchi division, he started out with 11 wins, and then again got 11 wins in the next tournament, then gets to Sanyaku, gets to 12 wins. Sekiwake comes down, it's now 9 wins, and then up to 13, now his best. And then when he gets promoted to Ozeki, he starts at 9, then 10, then 12, and in his most recent tournament, 14 wins. So the trajectory with Onosato has just always been up. When he gets promoted somewhere new, he might have a bit of a dip. I wouldn't be surprised at all if next tournament he gets maybe 9, 10 wins because it's a new position, a lot to acclimate to, new ceremony expected of him. And the same thing happened with Hoshoryu when he was first promoted to Yokozuna, where he had a tough tournament and actually ended up dropping out from injury, and then proceeded to have a really strong one this past tournament. Wouldn't be surprised at all if the same happens for Onosato, but after that adjustment period, Onosato has proven that he knows how to just adapt and turn it on and really acclimate to where he's at. And I could see the kinds of wins that he started pulling in consistently at Ozeki, 10, then 12, then 14 win tournaments. I could see him doing the same at Yokozuna and just racking up Yusho wins.
the the path really does seem to be abundantly clear for Onosato as far as becoming like not just the Dai Yokozuna of the 2020s, which we've kind of already established Terunofuji is, but one of the greatest Yokozuna of all time, on par with, the true, tippy top like Takanohana, Asashoryu, Hakuho himself. It's like guys are like it feels like double digit Yusho, which took Terunofuji all the way till he was a broken man to achieve. It feels like it's only going to take a couple of years for Onosato to reach double digit Yusho. I mean, this was only his 13th professional tournament, and he already has 4 titles, which is more than any other active competitor. I think the only other person with 3 is Mitakeumi, who just battled his way through the second division. So, there's so much to like expectations for Onosato are just sky high, and as they should be. Like he's done absolutely nothing to to temper expectations. It's like every time he gets asked to do more, he does more. Every time someone says, "All right, we expect you to do this," he does it. Like there's not like it's almost at the point where there's nothing to say except to sit back, watch, and just see how high he can climb that mountain.
Yeah, totally. I agree with the point. There's probably not going to be as much to say about Onosato as there was with Hoshoryu because when Hoshoryu was promoted, there was a bit of controversy and debate over whether or not it was the appropriate decision.
Mhm.
People worried that Hoshoryu would not maintain the quote unquote Yokozuna level performances that are expected. And one of the big questions that was asked of Hoshoryu at the time was, is he risking sort of being forced to retire early if he were to consistently have very bad performances, because that's sort of the pressure that's put on you as a Yokozuna. You're expected to drop out if you're starting to look like you're going to have a losing record or, just a very weak record. And that you can't stay at Yokozuna forever if you're not putting up Yokozuna performances. That's just now. First of all, with Hoshoryu, I'm not really worried about that, and certainly his performance this past tournament has really helped secure that he belongs where he's at. He's certainly among the very, very best in the top division, Hoshoryu. With Onosato, I don't even think you should be raising those questions because he's never given a reason to really ask these questions about whether he can do it. I mean, 4 Yusho wins in what is it, 9 tournaments in the top division?
9 tournaments total, but those four have all come in the last 7.
So what kind of pace would that be if he continues wrestling at this level until he's, say, 30? That would be 3 a year approximately for
Three
five
a
years.
year for 5 years. So that's another. If he wins literally half of the tournaments that he competes in between now and his 30th birthday, he will probably be just shy of, or maybe at around 20 titles.
I mean, anything can happen, obviously, and people, their
Of
performances
course, of
drop off
course.
sometimes, or it's possible he'll even reach a higher level. But I mean, anyone in the comments, let me know. Is it unrealistic to think Onosato could get to 20 Yusho wins? I don't see any reason to doubt it's possible. He's basically performed at that level his entire time. I guess the one thing, I don't even want to speak it into existence, but we all know the one thing that caused Terunofuji's career to really derail, and it wasn't about his ability or talents. I hope for only the best of health for all the sumo wrestlers, and I don't even want to speak the words of what could possibly derail his momentum.
But
But
I mean, you sort of have to, because it hasn't just derailed Terunofuji's career. I mean, it's derailed the career of literally every wrestler except the ones that have, retired because of like scandal or things like that.
we're talking injury, in case anyone's unclear with that.
Yes, of course, we're talking about injury. Taka Keisho retired at 28 years old. He had 4 Yusho already. If not for the injuries, like, that's a guy that could have seriously been a much more serious Yokozuna contender than he was throughout his 5 or so years as an Ozaki. But it's the same thing that has me, constantly frustrated at Kirishima. It's the same thing that, might be why Kodazakura isn't Yokozuna yet. It's the same thing even back in like the 90s and 2000s cost us some of the all-time greats like Akubono, Takanohana, Wakanohana. It cost us a potential Tochi Noshin becoming the first man from Europe to become a Yokozuna. There are so many all-time great what ifs in sumo, many of whom are still some of the all-time greats, with dozens of titles to their name, but were ultimately deprived of, maybe enjoying years more of glory because, like, nothing, everybody has a losing record against Father Time, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course. And one thing to say again, knock on any wood you
Except
can find,
Hakuho, maybe.
except
and
Hakuho.
and and Tamawashi.
Of course, well, Tamawashi. Speaking of Tamawashi, we barely discussed him in the last episode. Unfortunately, he had a weaker performance, but let's not forget that people like Tamawashi exist in this world, and it's an incredible thing. I hope that every wrestler can perform at that level for as long as Tamawashi has, and I certainly hope the same for Onosato. Um, knock on as much wood as you possibly can, but Onosato is yet to miss a match for injury.
He's yet
So,
to miss a match, and he's yet to have a losing record. I mean, the closest he came to a losing record was a 4-3 in Makushita, which seems like a million years ago in
And since
sumo
since
terms.
then, his worst record has been 9-6, which barely qualifies as a worst record for just even under the definition of a worst record is pretty incredible.
Hmm.
So I mean that's what I mean when I say that I could see him having a bit of a dip next tournament, maybe something like 9-6. But I would be surprised if it was less than that, honestly. So I guess there's not much else to really specifically point to with Onosato other than that it's incredible. The sky is the limit. I mean, the very greatest of sumo are the limit for Onosato. we were doing some math before the show, and it seems pretty much impossible for him to get as many Yusho wins as Hakuho. But second to that, I think pretty much anything is possible for him in his career. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if like a lot of people want to, are gonna want to know how many titles this man is capable of. Can he match Hakuho's record of 45? And my answer to that is this. Uh Onosato would need to win 42 more tournaments in order to break Hakuho's record. That means he would probably have to win every single tournament between now and the next 7 years.
That's doable.
So,
That's doable.
oh yeah, certainly doable. I mean, but in all seriousness, like he is much more likely to reach retirement age than than reach whatever age he needs to be to seriously challenge for, even like Chiyonofuji's mark of 31, who granted was able to win most of his titles in his 30s, but he was a very rare breed.
It seems so wrong to even be comparing Onosato to these names and implying that it's somehow a weakness in his game. I think the only reason we go to this direction is because it seems like a lock that he's going to have double-digit Yusho wins in his career. I mean, if in 2 years he's got four, why wouldn't he have another six over the next 10? So I guess that's why we're going to this point. Terunofuji, his goal was to get double-digit Yusho wins. He did before retiring. He got to 10. Onosato, I don't see any world where he's not getting to 10 unless, knock on that wood again, unless injury becomes an issue. I think it's, of course, he's going to get 10 Yusho, and so then it's, well, can he get to 20? Becomes the next question. And if he can get to 20, maybe 30. I guess we'll have that show in a couple years from now when he's on his 10th and we start asking how much more he can do. But at least at this stage, I think, there's really no one more deserving of this promotion than Onosato in the sport right now. Hoshoryu great. I'm really looking forward to seeing these two at the top. I think it's very fitting that they're both up there. But I just think that Onosato is capable of really tremendous things at this position. I can't wait to see it.
Onosato is him. He has been for the better part of a year and a half now. And, by the looks of just how he performed in these last two tournaments, he's going to remain him for, many years to come unless somebody figures out how to truly stop this one-man wrecking crew.
My last thing before we finish this episode, who do you think is going to win the next Basho?
Um, I'll say Wakataka Kage.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that.
I want to will it into I want to will it into I want to speak it into existence, that he finally achieves his Ozaki dream by winning a tournament from Sekiwake again.
Well, that would be awesome, and honestly, I would love to see that. But I thought you were going to say Onosato, and I was going to say, well, that just case in point of what we've been talking about. But that's a more interesting answer, so I really appreciate that.
Well, I mean, listen, if you go based off of, just the pure momentum, it looks like Onosato could be the guy. But as we've said, he usually tends to struggle in his first tournament in a new rank,
True,
at least
true.
compared to where he normally reaches. I am inclined to think that, with all of the partying that he's gonna be doing between now and the summer, that he might be a little bit slower. Maybe 11-4 seems perfectly doable. And you know what? 12-3 would probably be right up there. I just don't know for certain if 12-3 would be good enough for a U show, in the next tournament.
Yeah, understandable. All I would say is it's probably a good time if someone is itching to bet on someone other than Onosato. This upcoming tournament is probably your best chance to for a while. So maybe get in your Hoshoryu Yusho predictions and bets. Get that in now because I think soon after Onosato is going to be sweeping like he does. But that's all we got for this one. We just wanted to spend a little bit of extra time congratulating Onosato on his Yokozuna promotion, talking a bit about what we expect from him in this new role, and really, the sky's the limit here. I can't wait to see what this guy's going to do in the Yokozuna position. It's going to be a really exciting time, and I'm so glad that on this channel we've been able to watch him through his whole career in the top division.
Long live the Yokozuna, and like, comment, and subscribe to the New to Sumo podcast.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Join the ranks, let's start the show. New to sumo, here we go. Bouts and shouts, your weekly treat. Every champion you'll meet. Ring the gong, it's time to learn. Sumo tales at every turn. New to sumo podcast fun. Hear the thump of victory won. Join the ranks, let's start the show. New to sumo, here we go.